Hi, everybody. I'm Irfan Khan. I'm a cardiologist, founder and CEO of Circuit Clinical. We are a company that is here to deliver what's called a decentralized clinical trial. It's really optimized for the reality, the post-COVID reality that we all see, and wherein we need to move research, clinical research, closer to patients. So I'll walk you through our work and share some of our traction, and happy to take questions on, and really appreciate the opportunity that Launch has provided. So, in the post-COVID era, the idea of being able to deliver a trial closer to a patient, either at home, at their doctor's office, this is where all the deals that are happening right now are in. And the nature of the opportunity is that any company that can provide a digital engagement to a patient, helping them to choose a trial like TrialB, or platform technology that enables the access like Medable, those are solutions that everyone is thirsting for right now, because clinical trials is a huge space. It's a $54 billion market just in the US alone. That's all oriented around how do you help people solve the problem of finding a trial opportunity, evaluating it, choosing it, and then participating in it. And that's really where our work comes from. It springs from my 15-year career in cardiac electrophysiology. I've been trained in Cleveland, and I brought heart rhythm clinical trials to Western New York through my leadership over at South Buffalo Mercy once upon a time. And from that work came the idea that there was an opportunity to bring clinical trials out into the outpatient setting. So we do this in two ways, and this is a slide that pulls from our 43 North deck where we won last year. It's really two elements. It's digital and clinical engagement. So we built a platform a lot like Yelp or Healthgrades, and we'll get into why we might know a thing or two about how Healthgrades works. That makes it easier for people to find and choose trials. And then, of course, our core business is to deliver the clinical trial right into a healthcare space. So at its core, all Circuit does is make it easier for a patient to find the trial and then to participate in a place that's comfortable for them, including now at home. So this is a company that's been around for about 5 years now. We're trusted by the top 20 pharma and CROs. We are trusted by more than 30 health systems. We cover now 1.6 million lives. Stay tuned. We'll have announcements next month that will almost double the size of the company in terms of lives touched. And again, just doing these two things: creating a platform that anybody can use anywhere for free. It's got an enterprise solution to pharma, but patients get it for free. That helps them find where near them is doing a trial. And then, of course, our core opportunity is to create places where research can happen. Yes, we're partners with the University of Buffalo and Roswell Park, but we bring research into urban family practice in Western Europe, for example, a place that had never done clinical trials before. So it's really about envisioning another way for research to happen, which is good for all of us to bring down the cost and the speed of medicines getting to market. What do we do? Without us, you have to do everything from the physician oversight, to the patient care, the business development, the regulatory, all of that good stuff. Essentially, if you're a health system that partners with Circuit, you provide the physicians in the space to work in the EMR access, we take care of the rest. This model has now become an industry standard. Circuit is seen as one of the three great industry leaders in the integrated research organization model. Again, if you name a top pharma or CRO, they're either working with us or know of our work. And where do we sit on that competitive landscape? I think there's really two ways to engage a patient about clinical trials, and that you can do it directly in the room with them, or you can do it digitally, and there's great companies on both ends of the spectrum. Circuit's special sauce is that we position ourselves to create value on both sides of this coin, because it's really that effect, that ability to be useful to a patient when they're searching, and then useful to a patient by providing new places to present, that's critical. Clearly, the million-dollar question is what happens, maybe the billion-dollar question that happens is what happens to clinical trials, not just through COVID, but post-COVID. I can tell you from the work we're doing now that, don't need to take my word for it, just Google Circuit and COVID-19. We've been covered in Buffalo News. We've been covered in a bunch of national press. We helped Rutgers bring their saliva COVID test to market, using the words of our board member and certainly Rutgers operating officer. We accelerated that by 6 to 7 months. 30,000 people a day are getting that saliva test because Circuit found 199 Western New Yorkers to participate who qualified in a 5-arm study in 10 days rather than 6 months. So trial opportunities surface. We help patients find those trial opportunities through Trial Scout. We direct the ones that are relevant to us into our network, and we do 3 things. So this is useful in COVID. It's useful for every clinical trial out there. We create registry lists for the next trial. We bring people in for biospecimen collections for the early stage work. We bring people in for clinical trials. So easy to say in one breath. It's complicated work. It takes expertise in the spaces. Fortunately, we built a team that is well set up for that. The economics work. The margins are good. There's a little bit of variability, obviously, this year for understandable reasons, but we think we've built a model across Western Europe, tested over 5 years, that really does allow us to scale. As I said, we're in the process of doing just that this year. It's an interesting expansion model. You know, we don't have to spend a lot of money, about call it $600,000-$700,000 to go into a new region, spin up a bunch of clinical trial sites over there, see about a 3-year payback and great EBITDA as we run through the space. So we've figured out through, again, these partnerships we have with pharma and CROs, as well as with health systems, we're that useful connection in the middle space. We offer digital engagement, then the actual research spaces. And we're able to go out there and say, you've never done research before, we are the trusted ecosystem that comes in around you to bring clinical trials into that space. This is really, how do we scale? So it's really network expansion. It's really Circuit's core metric for growth. If you believe that we're doing 30 trials right now across Western New York, but Pfizer will only give us 1 site in Buffalo for a heart failure trial, and you can envision us having sites all across New York State, let alone anywhere else, that's a good way to grow. We have actually recently partnered with Roswell Park in a deal to bring Circuit's support structure across Roswell Park's care network across New York State and New Jersey. And then new partnerships through our work with LabCorp, which brings us into hospitals that LabCorp wants to add value for, which is us really going in there and saying, we can bring research as a care option to your patients and generate revenue for you. With every health system in the country finishing in the red, you can imagine that's a long list that we've got that we're working through very successfully so far. It's an experienced team. In my opinion, it's all about team. And I'm not referring to myself. Our CTO is the creator, the founding CTO of Healthgrades. Our head of sales is the former VP of sales for LabCorp's Northeast, $700 million book of business. Our head of ops ran the largest medical practice in upstate New York. Our head of network built QCare, IQVIA's billion-dollar research network. And our head of product came from Cypher Health. So we've managed to put together a group of people who really have all booked previous wins. That's backed up by our board. Jackie Kent is the EVP of product from Medidata. She previously had a 20-year career in clinical trials at Lilly. Andy Brooks has been all over the news in the last couple of months, having been the guy who created the saliva test. Our executive chairman is the founder of Healthgrades, took it to a $300 million exit. And of course, Craig Lipsitz needs no introduction, having been the head of clinical innovation at Pfizer. So we've brought together with a team of people who know healthcare, clinical trials, data, and digital engagement of patients. That's exactly the company we're talking about. And as a result, we're well positioned to go into a growth mode. So, you know, later this year, Circuit is kicking off our high octane raise as we seek to head into many regions across the Northeast. Most of that goes into building a sales and marketing team, product development, things like that. So I appreciate your time today. Happy to take questions on our work, and very thankful to Launch New York for being behind us as we went through a transition.
Would you mind flipping the slide back one?
Sure.
Thanks.
Any questions?
Well, as a read ahead, I'll share that if you think about growth for companies like this, the classic phrase, if you're looking this up later, is integrated research organization. I think it really comes down to 3 things. Do you have traction with pharma? Can you grow a network? In other words, are other health systems excited about the work you're doing and the value proposition you offer them? And then on the digital side, are there signs that the platform is gaining adoption? So I think if you watch the space over the next 6 weeks or so, you'll see a few announcements related to all 3 sides of that paradigm that should show that we think we understand where we've gotten to, and we look forward to the second half of the year, and certainly 2021 as high growth periods in the health system space.
Irfan, would you mind spending a moment and just going back over the financials, your current revenue run rate and projected forward financials and margins?
Sure. Yeah. So
I'm trying to
I'll go
connect
over
the
a couple of
dots
items.
on the raise.
Sure. So the revenue run rate this year, obviously COVID has thrown a lot of volatility into it, but a lot of opportunity too. We're on some pretty big projects that if they land, this could be a banner year for us. But we'll still see about, we're projecting to do about 2 million this year, which will be 100% year over year from last year, continuing the trend of increased growth. Margins, clinical trials is a business that only 25% of sites across the country do a margin better than 20%. Circuit is sitting around 40%. So again, a little bit of volatility created by COVID in the last 3 or 4 months because the entire site economy froze from call it early February through beginning of May. We were already seeing that we hit the bottom of the parabola back in April, and expansion is happening. So the studies we were on were frozen for a couple of months. They've all received guidance that they're all going back into enrollment. So COVID will end up looking like a relatively limited impact. I'm going to call it 3-4 months worth of impact total. But then the fact that we provide a digital solution in this space will end up paying dividends towards the end of the year. So that's margin, revenue. Happy to answer any other questions on that.
Can you talk through, I'm just trying to understand and connect the raise against the revenue. It looked like, I was trying to track on that chart that you had, it looked like revenue was scaling to 1.5 and 2.5 million over 3 years, but maybe I was misreading the chart.
Oh, yeah, and I apologize. I don't know why my oh, there we go. Sorry about that. I was trying to get us back to that thing. Is this chart you're talking about?
Yes.
This is for
right.
one.
30.
Yeah, this is for going into one region. So for every, think of it this way.
Okay.
So Syracuse versus Albany versus Rochester, right? So every time we run this game, we've got a ton of data to show us that we know what game we're playing here.
Gotcha. So what are your forward projections on your pro forma?
Yeah, so it's a great question. We're just in the process of sort of putting together the most recent model. I'll be happy to send you stuff in call it 2.5 weeks or so. I'd like not to get too far ahead of myself on that one, but
Gotcha.
if you're interested, just shoot me an email and I'd be happy to send stuff over to you. We're expecting, we've been in these conversations now for about a year or so as we kind of tidied up and got ready for this. But we figure we'll be kind of in foot down on the accelerator to get this raise done. I'm starting in August, really. And so I'll have the final sort of work product ready for that shortly. Happy to send it your way.
Great, thanks.
You bet. I want to be good on my time here, so I appreciate everybody's attention. Is there any other questions? Happy to take them.
We've got a couple more minutes. 1 minute.
Great.
Anyone?
To give you a sense of things where Circuit sits in terms of the idea share, if you were to follow me on LinkedIn, you'll see that Circuit is seen as a trusted innovator. So not just somebody yelling from the weeds that, oh, we should disrupt the whole thing, but instead a company that routinely its work product gets shared by industry leaders in the space. And certainly when I post position pieces, even on things as controversial as sort of what do we do about the social justice movement that's tearing through the industry and the country, that gets widely shared as well. So we're seen as a company that's part of the process, part of the solution, and our positioning is we're a nexus. We are a healthcare company trusted by both healthcare and pharma to connect those two things and to bring research care into healthcare spaces. I can tell you that's a massive market, a lot of time and energy and a lot of pain felt along the way of trying to create those solutions. But we sit here right now at a really interesting nexus. There's a push from the FDA to create digital health, and that's really being seen in clinical trials next. So thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.